The notification appeared on my phone exactly 7 years to the day after we first said, "I love you." It was a photograph, clinical and devastating in its clarity. My fiancée, Victoria, stood in front of City Hall, clutching a marriage certificate. The person beside her wasn't me. It was Marcus, her personal assistant. I stared at the image for a long moment, letting the reality sink in. Then I dialed her number with steady hands. "We're done," I said simply and ended the call. Within minutes, my phone rang again. Marcus' voice came through the speaker, theatrical with manufactured emotion. "Ethan, please don't be upset. It was just a silly joke between Victoria and me. She's been so stressed with work lately. You have to understand. This is entirely my fault." Then I heard her voice in the background, dripping with an intimacy she hadn't shown me in years. "Sweetheart, don't cry. You don't owe him any explanations. He depends on my family's money. Where else would he possibly go?" I didn't respond. I simply hung up, dropped my engagement ring into the wastebasket, and pulled out the acceptance letter from my desk drawer. My flight was booked within the hour. Victoria didn't return home that evening. When she finally appeared the next morning, reeking of alcohol and last night's perfume, she found me on the couch. "Make me coffee," she commanded, her tone casual and entitled. I glanced at her briefly, then returned to folding my shirt. When I didn't move, irritation flashed across her face. She approached me, eyebrows knitted together. "Ethan, are you ignoring me?" Her voice died when she noticed the suitcase. Her expression hardened instantly. "What's this supposed to be? Are you actually trying to break things off with me?" I kept my voice emotionless. "Is that really something to joke about?" Perhaps my complete detachment unsettled her. Her eyes turned cold as steel. She strode forward and kicked the suitcase, sending my carefully folded clothes across the floor. She towered over me, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Are you finished with this childish display?" I looked up at her and something like a smile crossed my lips, though it held no warmth. "My childish display? You're the one who just got married. Why are you even here?" Victoria's face contorted with impatience. "I already explained everything. Marcus was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He wanted to give his parents peace of mind before the end. You know how long he's worked for me right out of college. He's more than just my assistant. He's my closest friend. What's wrong with me helping him?" She paused, her tone taking on a condescending quality, as though she were granting me a tremendous favor. "Fine. When he passes away, you and I will get our own marriage license. Does that satisfy you?" I raised my hand, stopping her absurd speech. "That's enough. You don't need to explain any of this to me. You're a married woman now. These are conversations you should be having with your husband." Her face went rigid. "When it comes down to it, you just don't trust me at all. You don't have an ounce of compassion. If that's how you feel, I see no reason for us to get married either." The threat hung in the air between us. But I didn't care anymore. I agreed completely. Victoria froze, genuine shock crossing her features. "You're serious?" I didn't answer. I simply zipped my suitcase closed, stood, and headed for the door. As I moved past her, she grabbed my wrist, her voice turning venomous. "You'd better think carefully about this, Ethan. Without me, you're nothing." I looked into the eyes of the woman I'd loved for 7 years and saw only cold, dismissive arrogance. It hurt. Of course, it hurt. I took a slow breath, forced my lips into a smile, and peeled her fingers away one by one. "I wish you both all the happiness you deserve." I walked out without looking back. Just before the door closed, I heard her furious voice echoing behind me. "Ethan, if you walk through that door, don't you dare come crawling back. I can't wait to see how a freeloader like you survives on your own." The word freeloader made me pause mid-step. I turned one final time, not out of regret or longing, but to sear the image of her face, twisted with contempt and unrecognizable from the girl I'd once adored, into my memory. Victoria marched to the entrance, shot me one last glacial glare, and slammed the door. The deafening bang echoed through the hallway, a testament to her rage. In the parking garage, I encountered Marcus. He'd obviously just dropped Victoria off and had been waiting, ready to rush to her side the moment our argument erupted. He rolled down his window, a smirk playing on his lips as he eyed my luggage. "Well, if it isn't Mr. Carter. What happened? Did Victoria finally throw you out?" I gave him a cold look, saying nothing. But he pulled his car forward, blocking my path. "You should have left ages ago. A washed-up nobody like you never deserved her." I stopped and steadied his smug, punchable face. Then I laughed. "You're absolutely right. I don't deserve her. A pathetic parasite like you, though. You two are perfectly matched." Marcus' face contorted with fury. I didn't give him time to respond. I drove my foot into his stomach, doubling him over, and walked away without a backward glance. You don't need to be polite when taking out the trash. That night, lying in a hotel bed, memories washed over me in waves. Victoria had once been my entire universe. But she was the untouchable heiress of the Sterling family, and I was just a scholarship kid from a forgotten town. We'd met at Columbia University, but we existed in completely different worlds. Like every other guy who saw her, I could only admire from afar. I learned her schedule, positioning myself in the same lecture halls, the same campus cafes, the same library study rooms. Eventually, desperate to spend more time near her, I switched my major to her program at the business school. Until that day, it was the one decision I'd never regretted. Because of that choice, Victoria and I grew close. My grades were exceptional, and she selected me as her partner for a crucial group project. I remember being so overwhelmed, I could barely form words. Staring at her flawless face, I stammered for a full minute before finally managing to say, I'd be honored. Victoria burst into laughter, her eyes crinkling with genuine delight. You sound like we're getting married. The rest of our group erupted in cheers and whistles. I ducked my head, grinning awkwardly, my heart racing, but she came to my rescue immediately. Leave him alone, everyone. Ethan's brilliant. I'm the lucky one to have him on my team. After that day, we became inseparable. When I finally gathered the courage to ask her on a date, she accepted without hesitation. We had the perfect college romance, the couple everyone envied. When I graduated, I had offers from every major firm on Wall Street. My favorite professor even secured a full scholarship for me to pursue my PhD at Stanford. But for Victoria, I turned them all down. I willingly started at the bottom of her family's company, Sterling Corporation. And she fought with her family repeatedly to be with me, pushing back against their constant pressure, carving out a small world just for us. Sometimes I wonder how everything fell apart. We both wanted the same thing, a stable future together. But everything changed when Marcus appeared. Marcus was younger, more energetic, and knew exactly how to flatter her. I don't know precisely when it happened, but gradually our conversation shifted. We stopped discussing our dreams and started talking only about whatever thoughtful gesture Marcus had performed that day. At first, I was angry. I was jealous. But after several explosive arguments where she dismissed my concerns as overreactions, I realized her heart had already drifted away. It wasn't just Marcus' presence that disturbed me. It was Victoria's complete and utter indifference that left me hollow. No matter what I did to reconnect with her, all it took was one text from Marcus, and she would abandon everything to rush to his side. She gave all the affection she once had for me to him. For me, the man who had stood beside her for 7 years, there was only coldness and criticism. Even knowing all this, I proposed. I thought perhaps marriage would help her settle down, help us reconnect. But that marriage certificate with her name beside another man's destroyed the last shred of dignity our relationship possessed. Staring out at the city lights, a profound sense of peace settled over me. They say relationships have a 7-year itch. That any connection can grow stale after the passion fades. Perhaps Victoria and I simply ran out of time. The next morning, I went to the office to resign. It was largely a formality since my authority at Sterling Corporation had been systematically dismantled long ago. When the HR director received my resignation email, she didn't bother asking questions. The approval came through within minutes. Afterward, she called, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Such a shame, Ethan. We were all anticipating celebrating at your wedding. I ignored her mocking tone and replied with a smile. Don't worry. I'm sure you'll have your celebration soon enough. I hung up and was about to leave the building when my phone rang. It was Victoria. Ethan, stop this nonsense. I've rejected your resignation. This tantrum has gone far enough. If you don't stop immediately, I'll ensure you leave Sterling Corporation without a single penny. I laughed coldly. After 7 years together, did she really believe I was just some gold digger who could be controlled with threats? Do whatever you want. I don't care. I blocked her number and deleted her contact. The world became instantly quiet. I submitted my resignation again. This time, it was approved without resistance. With my termination letter in hand, I walked out of that building for the last time. That night, I slept better than I had in years. I didn't have to worry whether Victoria was drinking too much at work dinners or whether she was in a foul mood. I didn't have to concern myself with the company's endless problems. The freedom was intoxicating. The next morning, frantic ringing jolted me awake. I answered and Victoria's furious voice exploded from the speaker. Ethan, what the hell is wrong with you? The signing ceremony for the Harrison contract is today. You'd better be there. I shook my head to clear the fog of sleep, holding the phone away from my ear as she ranted. When she finally paused for breath, I spoke slowly and deliberately. You must have a poor memory, Miss Sterling. If I recall correctly, I resigned yesterday and you approved it. Your project has nothing to do with me, Ethan. She shrieked, her voice mixing fury with warning. I'm warning you. Don't push me. I may have approved your resignation, but the transition paperwork isn't complete. If you don't show up, I have every legal right to sue you for breach of contract. Her threats left me completely unmoved. Don't even attempt that with me, I said coldly. If you had actually read my resignation letter, you wouldn't be wasting your breath right now. I hung up. I never expected to see her again so quickly. After news of my resignation spread, several companies I'd collaborated with reached out with employment offers. The CEO of one, a man named Harrison, personally invited me to lunch. I couldn't politely decline, so I agreed to meet him. He was generous, reserving a private dining room at the Sterling Grand, one of the city's most exclusive hotels. The moment I entered the lobby, I saw it filled with familiar faces from my former company. It struck me then that the hotel was owned by Sterling Corporation. Victoria's major contract signing was happening in this very building. As I hesitated, considering whether to leave, Marcus materialized from nowhere. When he spotted me, a sneer spread across his face. The meek persona had vanished, replaced by arrogant swagger as he blocked my path. Look what we have here. If it isn't the washed-up loser. You talk such a big game, but now you're crawling back with your tail between your legs, aren't you? I gave him a dismissive glance. Looks like I didn't hit you hard enough last time. Are you back for more? Marcus's expression faltered, and he instinctively stepped back. But seeing my mocking look, his anger flared. Don't get cocky, Ethan. Victoria is my wife now. You're just a has-been with nothing to your name. I couldn't be bothered with him. I shoved him aside and walked into the hotel. He sputtered behind me, threatening to call security. The commotion drew everyone's attention in the lobby. I gave a casual wave to my former colleagues and headed for the stairs. Mr. Harrison's reservation was in a private room on the second floor, but someone was determined to prevent me from reaching it. Ethan, stop right there. Victoria came clicking up behind me in her heels. She looked me up and down, her expression full of contempt. This is an important day, and you show up dressed like that. If you're not embarrassed, I certainly am. She turned and ordered her assistant to take me to get a new suit and improve my appearance. I pushed the assistant away and looked at Victoria with amusement. Victoria, how many times must I say this? I've resigned. We are finished. I'm here for a business lunch, not to participate in your corporate theater. What I wear is none of your concern. Victoria looked stunned, then instinctively scoffed. You're meeting someone here. Don't make me laugh. You can't even afford a cup of coffee in this place. To her, someone like me, the freeloader, had no right to set foot in her family's five-star establishment. I didn't bother explaining. I turned to go upstairs, but another voice stopped me. Ethan, my friend, it's been far too long. I turned to see a heavy-set middle-aged man beaming as he approached. It was Mr. Harrison, CEO of Harrison Industries and the man of the hour. Victoria's crucial contract was a partnership with his company. Mr. Harrison, good to see you, I said, shaking his hand warmly. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Mr. Harrison turned to Victoria, who stood awkwardly to the side. Miss Sterling, I've always trusted Ethan's judgment completely. I'm prepared to sign the contract today, but I have one condition. Ethan here must lead the project from your end. His words left everyone speechless, including Victoria and me. Mr. Harrison, that's not possible, I said quickly. I've already resigned. I was about to explain my resignation, but Victoria grabbed my arm from behind, her nails digging into my skin. She gave Mr. Harrison a practiced smile. Of course, Mr. Harrison, that's no problem whatsoever. Then she tightened her grip, her voice a harsh whisper. Ethan, you'd better play along. Her tone left no room for argument. I let out a short, sharp laugh and yanked my arm free. As Mr. Harrison and everyone in the lobby watched in confusion, I raised my voice. I apologize, everyone, but I will not be participating in this project. I want to make something absolutely clear. As of yesterday, I resigned from Sterling Corporation. I no longer have any affiliation with this company. I paused and looked directly at Victoria. Furthermore, Miss Sterling recently married her assistant. We have no relationship, personal or professional. I turned back to a stunned Mr. Harrison. My apologies, Mr. Harrison. It seems our collaboration will need to wait for another opportunity. Victoria stood frozen, utterly shocked that I would humiliate her so publicly. Mr. Harrison's smile vanished, his expression turning grim. Miss Sterling, is what he said accurate? Victoria was at a complete loss for words. Marcus scurried over, attempting to salvage the situation with an obsequious grin. Mr. Harrison, please disregard him. He's just a bitter ex. You're here for Sterling Corporation's resources. I'll be taking over the project personally. Mr. Harrison glanced at Marcus, then back at Victoria, a look of pure contempt crossing his face. You want me to conduct business with this pretty boy? Miss Sterling, you have a peculiar sense of humor. Mr. Harrison and his team departed without another glance. Before leaving, he shook my hand and told me to contact him if I was seeking a new position. I smiled and nodded. The moment they disappeared, Victoria's composure shattered. She lunged at me, her hand raised to strike. You bastard, Ethan. Do you have any comprehension of how much money you just cost this company? I caught her wrist, my grip like iron, and pushed her away. Victoria, who had been pampered her entire life, had never been treated this way. She stared at me, her eyes burning with fury and disbelief. I told you already, I said calmly. I resigned. My life has nothing to do with you or your company. Today's disaster was caused by your own arrogance. It has nothing to do with me. Done with the drama, I turned and headed upstairs. In the private dining room, my lunch with another prospective employer went exceptionally well. He was enthusiastic about working together, but I knew any partnership would inevitably pull me back into Victoria's orbit. In the end, I politely declined his generous offer. After seeing the CEO to his car, I turned back toward the hotel and saw Victoria still sitting in a corner of the lobby. Marcus was kneeling beside her and they appeared to be arguing. It wasn't my concern. I started to walk away, but she spotted me. Ethan, wait. She ran over, grabbing my sleeve, her face a mask of anguish. Ethan, please don't be angry anymore. Come home with me. We were supposed to get married, remember? Marcus followed her, his face pale. He let out several weak coughs. Victoria, I don't feel well. Can you take me to the hospital? A flash of conflict crossed Victoria's face, but she ignored him, her eyes fixed on me with desperate hope. Don't do this, Ethan. I know I made a mistake. Marcus and it was just a stupid joke. Marcus looked devastated, his eyes wide with disbelief. I sighed. What are you doing, Victoria? You're a married woman. You should be more careful about your words. It was as though she hadn't heard me. She clung to my arm, rambling about our past, about everything we'd been through. I finally lost my patience and shook her off. Have you no shame? I still have some. I paused, then continued. Victoria, you're the one who married another man. I accepted it and walked away. Now you're the one harassing me. What exactly do you want? The world doesn't revolve around you. My cold stare finally made her realize I wasn't playing games. Panic flickered in her eyes. No, Ethan. I've only ever loved you. If you want, I'll divorce Marcus right now. She cried, her voice breaking, her eyes welling with tears. This vulnerable, pleading version of her was completely foreign to me. I watched her unmoved. There was a time when the slightest frown from her would have sent me into a panic. Now her tears just irritated me. She wasn't heartbroken that I was gone. She was furious that she'd lost a servant who came whenever summoned. That's enough, Victoria. Stop harassing me. If you genuinely care about something, perhaps you should turn around and check on your newly wedded husband. She didn't move, just kept wiping her tears, mumbling repeatedly. It's not like that. It's not like that. My husband can only be you. It will always be you. I know I was wrong. From now on, I'll change. I didn't want to hear it. I interrupted. A year ago, her words might have made me sacrifice everything for her. Now, they just made my skin crawl. I pulled my arm free. Save it. You should be more concerned about how you're going to explain the breach of contract to your board. The mention of the failed Harrison deal, a catastrophic blow to Sterling Corporation, made her freeze. Seizing the opportunity, I turned and walked away, relentless. I had underestimated Victoria's persistence. Somehow, she discovered where I was staying and began camping outside my apartment building. I tried ignoring her, but the moment she saw me, she ran up and attempted to throw her arms around me. I sidestepped her. What do you want now, Miss Sterling? My patience had worn dangerously thin. Victoria looked up, her eyes searching mine. I've been thinking. My father can handle the company. I don't need to worry about it anymore. You're the most important person in my life. I said nothing. What was there to say? Taking my silence as encouragement, she crept closer, reaching for my hand. Ethan, I sprained my ankle, searching for you. I scoffed and nodded toward a figure lurking in the shadows behind her. If you're injured, you should see a doctor. Or perhaps inform your actual husband, not me. Her expression faltered. She whipped her head around and saw Marcus standing a short distance away, looking utterly defeated. She snapped at him. I told you to stop following me. Will you just leave me alone? Then she turned back to me, her eyes softening artificially. Ethan, I'm going to divorce him. I really am sorry. Can't you feel how much I love you? I looked at her, really examined her, her so-called love. Did she even understand what that meant? I doubted it. The great Victoria Sterling, heiress to a fortune, had been worshipped her entire life. She couldn't tolerate being rejected by me, the boy she once treated as a plaything. This wasn't about love. It was about conquest. And I knew if I gave in, I'd end up exactly like Marcus, a boring, discarded toy. Your husband is right there. Aren't you going to comfort him? I said with a sarcastic smile. I mean, you too have a marriage certificate. This seems rather inappropriate, don't you think? My words hit their mark. Marcus approached from behind and wrapped his arms around Victoria. Victoria, please, let's just go home. As Victoria struggled, I delivered the final blow. Victoria, stop this. You made your choice. Now you have to live with the consequences. I don't want to see you again. Perhaps my bluntness finally wounded her pride. The desperation on her face vanished, replaced by simmering anger. She stopped fighting Marcus and melted into his embrace, turning to give me a dark, contemptuous look. Fine, Ethan. If you want to be this way, don't blame me for what happens next. Just don't come crawling back when you have nothing left. I simply shook my head and smiled. Her threats were hollow now. The news about Sterling Corporation's breach of contract with Harrison Industries exploded across the business world. The story of Victoria's affair with her assistant became common knowledge. Soon, the gossip blogs and tabloids were all over it. As the ex-fiancée, I suddenly became a person of interest. My phone exploded with calls from reporters. Finally, I had to cancel my number just to find some peace. A few days later, Victoria returned. This time, she brought 2 of her family's bodyguards and blocked the entrance to my building. She declared if I didn't go with her, I wasn't going anywhere. Not wanting to create a scene for my neighbors, I got into her car. My expression stormy. Victoria, is this ever going to end? She flinched at my tone, but quickly regained her composure. Ethan, I'm here because of my father. He's in the hospital. He wants to see you. Her voice had lost its arrogance, replaced by something that sounded almost like pleading. I didn't feel like arguing anymore, so I just leaned back and closed my eyes. At the hospital, in a private suite, I encountered Victoria's father. The man who was once an industry titan now looked pale and fragile in the hospital bed. Father, Victoria said softly. I brought Ethan. Mr. Sterling grunted and opened his eyes. Even weakened by illness, they remained sharp and commanding. That was the presence of a man accustomed to absolute authority. I couldn't help but notice that even Victoria, so brazen and domineering with me, was meek in his presence, nervously twisting the hem of her shirt, a habit she'd always had when tense. Before, I would have tried to comfort her, to tell her I was there for her. But those days were long gone. I had no reason to tiptoe around them anymore. I strode over to the sofa, sat down, and crossed my legs. Mr. Sterling, you wanted to see me. His eyes narrowed slightly. You've heard about the company's stock situation, I assume. I simply smiled without answering. His face darkened. I brought you here because I want you and Victoria to get married as soon as possible. That will smooth things over with Harrison Industries so the deal can proceed and you'll officially become part of the Sterling family. A mutually beneficial arrangement. His voice was weak, but the disdain and command were unmistakable. From the moment he discovered Victoria and I were dating, he had tried to separate us. He was convinced a poor kid like me was only after his family's fortune. Even now, nothing had changed. It all became clear. Sterling Corporation wasn't powerful enough to challenge Harrison Industries. After destroying the deal, they couldn't repair it independently. But they knew Mr. Harrison respected me, so they decided to use me as a pawn. From beginning to end, I was just a tool in their game. I've already told her to divorce that Marcus boy, he continued. As soon as you agree, you can marry my daughter. Victoria looked at me, her eyes shimmering with tears, waiting for me to consent. I met her gaze and said slowly and clearly, I'm sorry, but I don't want someone else's leftovers. The words had barely left my mouth when Mr. Sterling's hand flew across Victoria's face. The crack of the slap echoed in the quiet room. You shameless girl causing all this trouble for some pretty boy. You act so high and mighty, but you have no comprehension of what you're worth. His words were directed at her but meant for me. I just laughed, not bothering to react. Victoria held her reddening cheek, her eyes fixed on me as though hoping I would defend her. I simply watched, a detached observer. Then I stood to leave. Seeing his authority so blatantly ignored, Mr. Sterling lost his composure. He shot up in bed, pointing a trembling finger at my back and unleashing a torrent of curses. I treated it like a dog barking and kept walking. To my surprise, Victoria abandoned her father and ran after me. "Is there something else, Miss Sterling?" I asked, my voice dripping with impatience. "Ethan," she choked out. "I divorced Marcus. There's nothing standing between us anymore. Won't you please marry me?" I simply stared at her, my silence a clear and final answer. Tears streamed down her face. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You weren't like this before. Is there really no chance for us? You know I love you, but I don't love you anymore." I cut her off. "I don't believe you." Victoria's voice grew louder, more frantic. "I don't believe you, Ethan. You love me so much. Have you forgotten everything?" She was screaming now. A hysterical, wild-eyed woman who bore no resemblance to the cool, elegant CEO she presented to the world. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You said it yourself. That was the past. The Victoria I loved is dead." My words struck her like lightning. She shook her head desperately, trying to argue, to plead, but I was finished. I didn't want to fight with her anymore. I didn't want to hear her apologies. I pushed past her and walked away, leaving her to collapse on the floor in a heap of sobs. After that day, we had no contact. The media, however, was having a field day with Sterling Corporation's downfall. They had to pay the massive penalty for breaching the Harrison contract. Victoria had initiated sweeping layoffs to cut costs. The move backfired spectacularly, creating panic within the company and a tidal wave of negative press. If not for the family's deep-rooted connections, the company would have collapsed completely. I felt nothing about it. Victoria had made her choices. Meanwhile, Mr. Harrison contacted me again with an even more generous offer. I was tempted, but the thought of inevitably dealing with the Sterling family again was enough to make me decline. Instead, I called my former professor from Columbia and inquired about pursuing my PhD abroad. He was thrilled. He had always been disappointed when I sacrificed my opportunities for Victoria. Seeing me get back on track, he offered his full support. "Ethan, you're young," he said. "This is your time to build something meaningful for yourself." I didn't disappoint him. After several months of intensive studying and retaking the GRE, I was accepted into a prestigious program in London. To celebrate, my professor organized a reunion with some of my former classmates. And at that reunion, I saw Victoria again. It had only been a few months, but she was almost unrecognizable. It was Victoria who broke the awkward silence. "Long time no see, Ethan." She offered a smile, but it was strained and fragile. I nodded, saying nothing. Her gaze fell. "I must look terrible, don't I?" "You look tired," I answered honestly. Perhaps it was the simple, calm way we were speaking, something we hadn't done in so long, that made her eyes well up again. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I thought I'd never see you again." She took a step closer, then another until she was standing directly in front of me. I frowned and stepped back, creating space between us. "We're just talking," I said coolly. "You're standing too close. People might get the wrong impression." My physical and verbal distance clearly stung her. The sadness in her eyes was palpable. I was growing annoyed. "Who was this performance for? If you're finished, we should go inside. The professor is waiting." I walked past her without another word. Inside, when my former classmates heard I'd been accepted to a top program in London, they all raised their glasses to me. After several rounds of toasts, I was feeling pleasantly buzzed. My professor, not much of a drinker, said his farewells early, leaving us younger folks to ourselves. With him gone, the atmosphere grew louder. At some point, the conversation turned to me. I answered their questions with a smile, but inevitably someone brought up Victoria and our past relationship. In college, we had been the golden couple. My smile vanished. I picked up my glass and stood. When all eyes were on me, I spoke clearly. "Miss Sterling comes from a world I could never belong to. I'm grateful for the time we shared, and I'm a better person for the experience." With that, I drained my glass. Most people understood and changed the subject, but there are always one or two who thrive on drama. Fueled by alcohol, they started attempting to push Victoria and me into playing some ridiculous couples game. I set my glass down firmly, making it clear I wasn't participating. Victoria, to her credit, tried to deflect from me, but they were relentless. She looked down, feigning reluctance, and sat beside me. I moved to stand, but Victoria, pretending to be intoxicated, stumbled and fell against me, wrapping her arms around me to catch her balance. The room erupted in cheers. "Kiss her! Kiss her!" A glint of triumph flashed in Victoria's eyes, and she actually leaned in to kiss me. I had reached my absolute limit. I shoved her away forcefully. "Have you had enough?" My sudden outburst silenced the room. The atmosphere grew thick with tension. I ignored everyone else. My eyes locked on Victoria. "Victoria, these people don't know what happened between us. I can forgive them for being foolish. But you know exactly what you did." Victoria bit her lip, her face a picture of false innocence. I raised my voice, ensuring everyone could hear. "For those of you who are confused, Victoria and I broke up. The reason we broke up is because she married another man." A wave of shocked gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. "I've had too much to drink," I announced. "I'm going home." I turned and left. But impossibly, Victoria followed me outside. I had never imagined she could be this shameless, this relentless. For a moment, I almost missed the cold, arrogant woman she used to be. I stopped and spun around to face her. "Will you just stop? Don't you realize how pathetic this is?" She stopped, tears streaming down her face. "I know you're leaving the country. I just wanted a chance to see you a few more times." Her words did nothing for me. She didn't cherish our time together when it mattered. Who was this performance for now? Besides, a month ago, Marcus had sent me a photograph of them on vacation together. All smiles. Why was she still pursuing me? "You have a husband," I said flatly. "You should try acting like it." She shook her head violently. "No, it's completely over between us." The entire story poured out. Marcus had fabricated his illness from the beginning. He was never sick. He simply wanted to win her sympathy and steal her away from me. Watching her stand there sobbing and trembling, I felt not a shred of pity. Marcus was manipulative certainly, but he couldn't have succeeded without Victoria's willing participation. It wasn't that he deceived her. It was that she wanted to be deceived. But none of it mattered anymore. The damage was irreversible. Arguing about blame was pointless. "Victoria, let me go and let yourself go. Can't we just let this end with some dignity?" The next time I saw Victoria was the day of my flight. She wore a mask and sunglasses, following me from a distance, thinking I hadn't noticed. I decided to play along and proceeded to the first-class lounge. She took a seat several rows behind me. I put on my headphones and waited. Just before boarding, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Victoria's father. His tone was completely transformed, polite, almost pleading. "Ethan, please reconsider. I want to apologize. Can you please give my daughter another chance? I know I was wrong about you. I see now what you're capable of, and I see how much you cared for her. Since you left, she's been just empty. As a father, it breaks my heart to see her like this. So, I'm begging you, for the sake of what you two once shared, please give her one more chance." I stood and turned around, looking directly at Victoria. "Mr. Sterling," I said into the phone, my voice loud enough for her to hear clearly. "And you too, Victoria. I'm only going to say this one final time. Listen carefully. From this moment forward, I have nothing to do with the Sterling family. We are strangers." I walked to the gate. As I handed over my boarding pass, I glanced back. Victoria had collapsed onto the floor, her body shaking with sobs. I didn't hesitate. I didn't turn back. Once on the plane, gazing out at the endless blue sky, a profound calm settled over me. I went through my new phone and deleted every contact remotely connected to her. When the plane landed in London, the unfamiliar surroundings gave me a momentary pang of anxiety, but it was quickly replaced by exhilaration. "Are you Ethan?" A young, bright-eyed woman holding a sign with my name rushed up to me. "I'm Sophie. I'm here to pick you up." I shook her offered hand and smiled. "Hi, Sophie." Life in London was a whirlwind of challenging coursework and late-night study sessions. The clutter in my mind gradually faded, replaced by academic focus and genuine excitement about my future. I had almost forgotten Victoria's name entirely when late one night, a call came from an international number. "Am I speaking with Mr. Ethan Carter?" "This is he. I'm the attorney for Miss Victoria Sterling. She passed away today at 3:10 p.m. New York time. Before she passed, she asked me to deliver a message to you." Before I could respond, Sophie walked out of the bathroom, toweling her wet hair. "Sweetheart, who's calling so late?" I smiled and gave her a reassuring look. "Don't worry, it's no one important." I turned my attention back to the phone, cutting the lawyer off before he could continue. "I'm not interested." I hung up. Sophie snuggled into my arms, her eyes soft with affection. "Hey, my parents want to meet you. Can you come over for dinner tomorrow?" I smiled and gently tapped the end of her nose. "Of course.